guys, this is it. I decided I wasn't gambling hard enough, so it's time to start playing PLO 5-card high. Welcome to 5-card bingo high. In our first hand, we have king, queen, queen, 10-7. It's a pretty trashy hand in 5-card, but we call from the button position. Flop ourselves trip 10s, not bad, and it checks all the way around. I thought about betting my trip 10s here, but every single turn card pretty much is bad, so I decided to just not. Decided to play pretty conservative here at first. Having a 10 in my hand, I should definitely be potting flop. I need to charge a worse 10 to draw to a full house, and I should be confident that 10-4 is potting flop because 10-4 needs to charge other 10s to draw to a full house. Someone who is drawing to a full house on the turn, if they don't get there on the turn, I can just pot again and get them to fold their hand. Turn doesn't bring us any help, and now there's 2 flush draws. Short stack goes all in for 85 into a pot that is much larger, and I make the call with trip 10s. He could have 2 flush draws here. He could have some straight draws. So make the call, and it's exactly right. He was on a flush draw and gets there on the river. So we lose our first 5-card bingo high hand. Next up we have ace queen 9-7-6. This is another pretty trashy hand, but I was on the button, everyone had called. We have some straight and nut flush potential. Although usually we'll have to flop this straight to do well on it because 9-7-6 is not really good for wraps. So we take a flop and immediately flop the absolute nut with a nut redraw. I'm just nutting everywhere. See, when you have that nut and then you can nut again, so naturally, early position who had pre-flop raised pots. I repot all in for about 200 to 250, and the other guy calls, and he just has the regular nuts. We bink him on the turn. Bink! Now we're in late position and we have kings and 8s and decide to pot. In the blinds, there's a huge action player who went all in with a low backdoor straight draw and a 5-high flush draw on a flop. Of course he won that, so he has us covered. He makes it $100, and with king, king, 8-8, this is a strong hand, but not really going all in strong. I just make the call, pot is 200. We had about 500 effective to start, which means that we were about 400 after the flop. We flopped 2 sets, not as good as top set, but we'll have to go with it, even though there's so many draws on the flop. So he immediately goes all in. He actually had more than all in, but he pushed all of his chips in the middle, and the dealers were treating that as if I raised, he would immediately call. I, of course, go all in with my top set, and he de facto calls. We see that queen of spades on the turn, and naturally I was just like, shit, he's straight. My hand strength is now absolute trash, and I'm blocking my own boat outs, which is pretty bad. He's gonna scoop that one. With king, queen, jack, 9. Actually a pretty good 3-bet and immediate all-in on the flop, because even though we have a set, since we have another set, we are a dog versus him. He has an enormous wrap, although if he had the spade draw, it would be even worse. This is actually not a great situation to have top set. King, king, 8-8 is a good hand pre-flop, but it's not a great hand because when you flop that set, you're not usually gonna have great backup. Anyway, we'll ship that one his way. Now we're in late position again, and this time we have queens and 8s. Decided, you know what? Kings and 8s didn't hold. Queens and 8s, though, it's time to pot. So potted, get a bunch of callers, and see a flop. Flop top set though. Flop top set, do you sense a theme? Let's see if this one will hold. So naturally, two players before me both go all in. And with the nuts, think about it, but we're gonna have to go all in. So we go all in, and turns out we're up against pocket threes and the nut flush draw and low wrap. So we only have to dodge 1 3 for the pocket threes, but for the low wrap and nut flush draw, we gotta dodge earth. Comes down 10-8. We actually make our second set too, and hold. Somehow no one has Jack 9. We don't get sucked out on. It's wild. So after winning that one, my stack is about 1K, and I pick up ragged aces with 1 suit. A bunch of people have limped, and it's 15 to me. If I pot here, I'm only getting in 100 something, and my stack is 1,000. So I can't really pot here because I'm gonna whiff almost every flop. If 2 diamonds come or an ace comes, I can pot flop. But other than that, I pretty much have to check back or insta-fold every flop. I decided to just check this one and basically set mine with our aces. PLO 5 card, pretty weird. Pot. He said. Pot. He said. Pot.
Offsuit 2, offsuit 2, offsuit 2.
Because pretty much all my hands went to showdown, I can actually show you an all-in equity graph from my session. This is cool because before I just had like a pretty subjective run hot or run bad, but this time we can actually put a number to it. So we were in for $1 million and out for $1,090,000. A miraculous win with our first stint at 5 card. I am very proud of myself.